Hi there, crafty friends. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Today, I thought we would use the Wild Violet and Ladybugs die set by Susan Tierney Cockburn for Spellbinders. This card, I'm hoping, turns out really pretty. I want to go for a dramatic look. I was sent this die set along with the coordinating press and foil sentiment set from Spellbinders to go ahead and create for them. So let's get started. This is a 5-piece die set. I have cut my stem once. I cut my leaves 4 times. And I used rainforest for my stem and my leaves. Then I went ahead and I cut my violet petals 4 times from Fairy Tale. Then we've got this little die here. I am not using that one. We've got our little ladybug die, and I cut that once from plain white. So let's get some color added to these. So for my violets, I am just coming in with a darker purple, and I hope I have these spaced far enough apart. I've got them on my sticky mat so I don't lose anything. And we just want to add some shading here. I am just going to get a nice deep purple added to these petals. And I am concentrating at the base of those petals and the center of them just to get some good shading. Now we can come in and do the same with our stem and our leaves. I'm coming in just with a darker green than the cardstock we started with, and we'll just add shading to the base. So Susan's got a whole collection that is releasing today, January 10th. And I watched a couple of her videos on how to create this. And she does a lot of shaping. These are more 3D objects, I want to say, versus a card. But we are still going to make it work. And she does a lot of shaping and shading, and they are really beautiful when she's done. I think there's actually 4 different wildflowers in this collection coming out today, but we are just using the violets. I think that's looking good. So let's go ahead and work on our ladybug. For our ladybug, I am only doing the larger one, and I will be coloring that with an Olo. I will be using R0.5, and I am just going to make sure I get a lot of ink on there. These Olos are very juicy, so all you have to really do is just tap that, and you will get a lot of ink on there. See, it went all the way through. We're just going to saturate that. I am going to let that alcohol ink dry a bit, and we can assemble our violets. So the violets are very delicate. We have 3 petals per, and because I am not super great at shaping, we are just going to bring in the mat from our Misty. We can lay these on our mat, and I am just going to use the back of a blender brush and just give those a curve and a curl. Because I don't have all of the shaping tools. I used to, but I actually gave them away because I never used them. So we're just going to shape our violets. I will go ahead and repeat that process on the other 3. Actually, the other 2, because for the third one, we're going to shape in the opposite direction. And this works perfect with the end of a blender brush. You could use a pen, just make sure it's nice and smooth. There we've got our other 2 shaped. And then for our third violet, we are only using the narrower petals. We're not using these fatter petals and the single, we're using the narrower, and we are going to flip that upside down before we shape it. And then for my leaves, I'm really not going to shape them because we will just fluff those up with our fingers when we get to it. Let's bring in a pair of scissors, and now we want to start assembly. So I'm bringing in a little bit of liquid glue. I am bringing that mat back in, and let's do this petal or this stem right here. We're going to give it a curve. And then we're going to place these two petals in that curve. So we want to glue these together. And tweezers will be your best friend. Then we can add those right in there. We can set that aside to dry for a minute and assemble our other violets. So we've got our fatter double petal and our skinnier double petal, and let's assemble these. I am just going to take the fatter petal, put some glue on there, attach our smaller petal, double petal. That should be good. And then we are going to add another little drop right in the middle, and we can do our single petal. We can move that aside to dry and do our other two, and we're just repeating the process. So while those dry, we can bring back in our ladybug, and I am bringing in a fine point marker here. This is a Tombow, and this is just the black, and we are just going to add our little markings. You can see all of those etched markings on there. So we are just going to very carefully come in and color in those markings of that ladybug. We have to do her head, and then we'll come in and do her body. And then we want one little line, one thin little line straight down the middle, if I can hold it, like that. And then we will just put a little bit of ink in her markings. Then we can take our ladybug and turn her upside down and give her a little curve. And then she's perfect. We'll put her aside and let's start building our card. So we will be using the molded frame 3D embossing folder. And I've gone ahead and I've cut two panels, one 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, that's our A2. And then this panel I cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and I ran that through my embossing folder. Then I've also got another smaller panel here that is cut to, I think it was 1 3/4 by 3. And then I just placed that in the center and I ran that through my machine because I just want to make sure that I get lots of dimension today. I've gone ahead and I've added some thin foam tape to the back of my frame here. Now we'll just layer that on our A2 panel. And I think I forgot to mention, this is Spellbinder's Indigo cardstock. I love this dark blue. So now we can add a little bit more foam tape behind our centerpiece of our frame. And then we can add that to our panel here. And now we can fluff up our leaves. I'm just getting those ready for when we build our cluster. I hope everyone is doing fabulous and having a great day. I just love this set. And I'm using the dark blue background because I want some drama. I don't like drama in real life, but I do like drama on my cards sometimes. All right, I think our violets should be dry enough to go ahead and assemble. Let's just add a little bit of glue to those stems, and we can add our violets. And we don't have them all the same direction, kind of change it up a little bit. Now we can add some leaves behind those violets. And I'm just going to place a few here and there just to see how I like the arrangement. And then I will attach those with liquid glue. I think we need one more back here. I think that's looking really pretty. So let's get our leaves attached. While that sets up, let's go ahead and add our panel to our card base. I've got a top folding A2 card base here, and I'm just going to attach this with liquid glue. Then I've got some thin foam squares here, and I just want to add a little piece underneath my little bud because I want that to be popped up. So I will very carefully lift up that bud and just stick that foam right underneath there. Then we are going to take some foam squares and add them to the back of our cluster. Then we've got to figure out where we want to place our cluster. And I am just going to add liquid glue to my stem. So let's get those backings off. Add a little glue to the stem. And I think this would be so pretty on like a scrapbook layout or anything. You can do more than one cluster. Let's figure out where we want that. Probably right there. That is so pretty. I just love the contrast, the drama in that. So let's go ahead and get our sentiment added. I think that glue is set up. And this is a really nice set. This is the Poet's Garden Sentiments. She's got Happy Gotcha Day for an adoption. We've got thank you. And then a couple other quotes that are really, really nice. And each of those comes with a coordinating die. I went ahead and I hot foiled the thank you out of gold. And we are going to add that right here underneath our violet cluster with some foam. So now all we have to do are add some embellishments. And I am using the Fashion Gold pearls. And I'm just going to add those inside my clusters. And that card is done. Isn't that pretty? I just love this dimension. I did do another little ladybug because I felt like this little ladybug got a little messed up with my pen. So I did another ladybug. I popped her up with a foam square. I added some additional gold pearls right around the outside of my cluster. And I love that. That is so pretty. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.